Okay, okay.
Good morning, doctor. Welcome back.
Good morning. Good morning, Venkatesh. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're
So
looking
we'll
very good
start with the
spirits.
sorry.
A nice t-shirt to go with. So I'm sure we'll have a great session today.
Good. So yeah, I'll just give a minute of backdrop and hand off to you. So
Right,
continuing with our sessions on wellness, conducted
right.
by Dr. Srinivasan, who's been a medical professional, a professional musician almost, and a practitioner of balanced living. And today's topic is stress management, which is where most of us in the real world face our biggest challenges in making wellness and balance work. Yeah. So over to you, Doc.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Venkatesh. Keep up the good work. Now, see, most of us, in fact, almost all of us, have stress. Okay. It's a great non-statement of the decade. Yeah. But almost all of us put the blame on someone else. If you are married, the first one to put the blame on is your wife. Yeah. If you are employed, the first one to put the blame on is your boss, etc., etc. So on no occasion do we ever acknowledge the fact that we ourselves could be part of the stress. Instead of tossing and turning the stressor, you better look at yourself.
Yeah.
Because stress is not what happens to you. It's a question of how you respond to whatever is happening.
Yeah.
So this is a major difference we all have to accept. And in a way, it sounds like philosophy, because whether you look at Shankaracharya or Jesus Christ, people say clearly that you are the cause of your own stress, but we ignore that. The first thing we do every day is to put the blame on somebody else. So, in short, stress is not what happens to you. Stress is what your response to whatever is happening to you. So, if you want to manage that, you have to manage not the cause,
Yeah.
but yourself. How
Perfect.
you stress. Yeah. Yeah. Any comments?
No, I think perfect talk, and I think absolutely that's how I think today the perspective is on what we can do about stress in our own lives. Perfect, perfect.
Correct, correct. Right, right. So next slide, please.
Correct.
Next
Yeah,
slide, please.
yeah. So I
Now
guess
you can see,
just
yeah,
laying out that today's talk we will split it into two parts. One, you will explain
right,
the mechanism of stress, and then we'll discuss exactly how to manage it. Yeah.
good.
Should I
Next
move to
slide.
the next one? Yeah.
Yeah. Now in this graph, yeah, you have comments?
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Now everybody is stressed and everybody is reacting to stress, okay, in his or her own way. And whenever stress occurs to you, happens to you, your performance is affected. Whatever you are doing, you are writing, you are speaking, you are hitting a tennis ball, or you are dancing, or whatever, your performance is affected by stress, and it is inversely proportional to the stress that you are experiencing. And as you can see, if somebody asks you to play a game of tennis without any opponent across the net, they will laugh at it. You will say, what nonsense. But at the same time, you want somebody to keep acting on you.
Right.
So you can't live without some stressor. And the stressor is an absolute must. And the stressor is peculiar in the sense, up to a point, your stressor is a good stressor. It's called eustress.
Right.
And beyond a point, it becomes distress or a very bad, stressful stress, if you
Right.
like. So you should know where the curve turns. The curve starts off with eustress, and we enjoy a bit of adrenaline flow, as they say.
Right.
People say, "Ha, that adrenaline flow." Now they
Right.
say testosterone flow, jokingly.
Right.
Up to a point. Yeah, you want to say something?
No, no, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Without that stress, without a deadline, without some kind of a commitment, you don't get anything done. Right. So you
Correct,
need that
correct,
external
correct.
stressor. Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is proven even by physiology departments in almost all colleges. There is something called Starling's law.
Right.
And up to a point, your heart functions better with sort of more stress, but beyond a point, the heart fails, etc., etc.
Got it.
So we all have to have, and we enjoy eustress,
Right.
we get the thrill of doing something.
Correct.
And then beyond the point, it's bad. You're in bad shape.
Right.
So eustress and distress, you should know how to manage things like whatever else it is. And if you bring it into the quadrant of eustress, you
Right.
are more successful in life. Yeah, your comments, Venkatesh?
No, perfect. And I think as we, I think you're going to discuss it, knowing the difference between one and the other, and managing one's work, managing one's life to stay within the eustress zone is, I guess,
Right.
the trick.
Absolutely. Yeah. Next slide, please. Now, this is a diagrammatic representation of your own brain,
Right.
the eustress zone or in the distress zone.
Right.
And brain is the same, the nerve cells are the same, but you feel eustress at times and you feel distress at times and you feel the reverse, etc., etc. So, as Venkatesh said, the art and science of stress management is to keep everything within the eustress zone.
Right.
So, let's see how it goes. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Now, whenever there is stress, there are lots of chemical changes happening in you.
Right.
And these chemical changes affect not just the brain, but the kidney, the skin, the heart, the intestines, everything gets
Correct.
affected by the stress.
Correct.
And majorly, if your stress is in the what is called as adrenaline induced.
Right.
Adrenaline is a chemical, adrenaline is a hormone.
Right.
And opposite of that is cortisol, which is also a hormone. But
Right.
these two have different mechanisms of action within the body.
Right.
So adrenaline, yeah, you want to say something?
No, perfect. In fact, I think sometimes there's a tendency for the lay person to mix up the two because you hear them, but I think you've
Right.
painted really well that they are opposite to each other, or rather they do different things. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Very interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many times we have an acute response to something by releasing adrenaline, and that may not work in the long-term situation where you have to call upon cortisol, etc. Now, these in physiology, we have different types of reactions, different connotations, etc., etc. But for most purposes today, we will look more at cortisol rather than adrenaline. The reason is simple. You have an adrenaline rush, and that rush is for a few minutes or a few seconds, and then the rush stops. Then there is no adrenaline.
Right.
Then your body systems continue to go. How do they go? They go because of cortisol, which is also a chemical hormone. And this creates a different type of a response.
Right.
With adrenaline, which is acute within a few minutes or whatever, you get a flight or fear or flight response,
Fight or flight.
Fight.
Yeah. Either fight or run away. Correct.
Yeah. So if your enemy is within controllable things, as you are walking along the road and somebody hits you on a bicycle, you get a rush of what? Adrenaline you get. Because you know that if somebody hits you on a bicycle, you're not going to die. You can hold his handlebar and shake him up, and adrenaline does the job and he's gone and you are okay.
Right.
Whereas if you have got an exam tomorrow, and if you have got a lot of things hinging on that examination,
right,
and it's a do situation,
correct,
and it goes on time, then you bring in the bad stress or the fear response of what will happen to my exam, what will happen to my admission to the next college or whatever.
right,
So cortisol is what we are going to look at. Adrenaline we have seen and we are done with it.
correct.
Now we should spend more time on cortisol because that is the major element in our lives, not just ourselves, all big munis, jnanis and scientists and whatever, they all suffer or don't suffer the cause effect of cortisol.
Right.
So 99.9% we are cortisol driven, and that is bad. In fact, cortisol is a bad one, and it creates a very complex kind of a response. We call it a fear response and anxiety response. Yeah. Anger, anxiety, depression, and psychological disorders, all those things happen because of high cortisol level. Now, the endocrinology of cortisol is immensely complex. and we need not go into those details.
Right.
And we will look at certain selected aspects. Yeah, Venkatesh, you have something?
No, I think this makes a lot of sense. And, what I'm summarizing from what you said is adrenaline is this momentary rush of
Right.
chemicals that gives you the chance to either fight or run. But cortisol is the longer lasting effect of all of this, which is primarily harmful if not managed. Perfect. Perfect.
Good. Now, just to, in a lighter vein,
Right.
to add adrenaline part, nowadays nobody says adrenaline rush, because it's
Right.
not macho, adrenaline. You have to say
You'll be
testosterone.
surprised. Actually, still people are in searching for adrenaline rushes, Dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So we will see more about cortisol in the slides that follow.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Now, it is a universal problem today, whether you're in America, or Australia, or Africa, or Timbuktu, or New York. You are being affected by changes in lifestyle of people. Now, you cannot say, I'll keep off the lifestyle issues, because lifestyle issues will hound you anyway.
Right.
To survive, you have your adjustable, triggerable, switch-offable lifestyle problems. And that is where the trick lies. You have to fine-tune your lifestyle. There are plenty of problems with the lifestyles, but at the same time, they are required. Otherwise, again, you can't function.
Right.
So today, we have a lifestyle disease of enormity, in the sense that it affects almost all the organs of the body, particularly the vital organs like heart, brain, and so forth. And then diseases that follow, say with cancer, you see the crab there.
Right.
So these complexities of lifestyle disorders are something that we have to understand and control and appreciate. Next slide, please. Now, chronic stress is what we see, we just mentioned, that it is because of cortisol.
Right.
And cortisol does a few things which you can prove in laboratory studies. For example, you have vague pains and aches, and you feel tired out, you feel no energy and so forth. Then you have muscle tension, you have trouble concentrating, you have difficulty in sleeping, you have nervousness and anxiety, and all that is not because of adrenaline, but because of cortisol. And to control cortisol is the essence. But you can't live without cortisol. Without cortisol, we are dead. Because all the biochemical changes that occur inside us are because of cortisol. And cortisol is necessary to keep your heart going, lungs going, brain going, etc., etc. So this is where the balancing act comes. Balance is the essence, as Venkatesh.
It keeps coming back.
So,
yeah.
Back, coming back like a bad dollar. So that's why the common sense are, and you'll be surprised the conditions that are listed on the left side of the
slide
constitute 90% of healthcare economy all over the world.
Right.
Now, in the world, you have people complaining of muscle tension, trouble concentrating, blah, blah, blah. And that market is 90% of the global healthcare market.
Right.
And not only that, it spills over into spas and, all kinds of fancy types of medical concentration. So I got a neighbor whose wife is a little difficult to deal with mentally. She is disturbed for various reasons. And she is spending, as of this moment, she is spending 2 lakhs. Yeah. Because she feels so happy that she is spending 2 lakhs and she is able to control her problems. But alas, lo and behold, it doesn't happen. The more you chase, the more it runs away from you. But you have to understand, merely chasing is not enough. You have to have a better grip on the situation and so forth. So this is a huge market, and you have to know how to manage, how to live with it. You can't say, I will die. You can't say nobody likes death. Yeah. But many times this is only answer to the problems that we have, jokingly.
No, absolutely.
So
I think the main point that is coming across, like you said, is that many of these bad chemicals, or seemingly what is simplistically called bad, like cortisol, even they are essential. So it's all about being in the Goldilocks zone, or being in that balance zone, right? And keeping it. Should I move to the next slide?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk of stress, there is a stressor, there is a stimulus to stress, and that enters your body, it enters your nervous system,
Right.
and then it is dealt with by the same nervous system on the other side of the fence.
Right.
So how does this thing, movement, or how does the molecule movement from one direction to another, how is it controlled? And for that, we have to understand there are two pathways
Right.
in the brain. Okay, they are called roads, high roads and low roads.
No, no.
And high roads and low roads are functionally interconnected, and they have to be balanced again. It's a question of again balance. You can't have only high road, you can't have only low road.
Correct.
So everywhere you go, you touch, you put your finger, you have a balance. Now you should balance your low road and high road thing. How do you do that?
Right.
Simple example is, supposing something hurts you, something happens to you,
Right.
and you respond immediately, and that is because of your involvement of your muscle, the nerve stimulus going along the low road, which is very fast.
Right.
There is something called amygdala, a
Right.
part of the brain. Yeah, you want to say something?
No. Please go ahead. Please go ahead. I'll add in the end, but perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
So if you're responding quickly and very fast and very vehemently, then you're going by the low road.
Right.
Your nerve chemicals, what we call as neuronal chemicals,
Right.
they take the road and you react immediately.
Right.
Whereas if you react a little more steadily, then you are on the high road. Like the good old methodology of controlling anger, the anger controlling. They say simple, don't have to go anywhere. You simply count up to 10 before you react. Now, the trouble is, you don't know how to count up to 10 when you are already stressed. So you ignore that advice and create more problem. So counting up to 10 is a very simple, cheap and effective way of diverting your signals from the low to the high. And the high road is one that where the sensory cortex is the prefrontal cortex. We call it prefrontal. In the sense that frontal is in front.
Right.
Prefrontal means right up in front.
Right.
There, your higher functions emerge and control.
Right.
Your personalities, your likes and dislikes, and very subtle types of emotional controls and all happen along the high road.
Correct.
And the higher the road, the more the time you get to react.
Correct.
Instead of counting up to 10, you can count up to 20. Why not? Nobody is preventing you from counting up to even 15.
Correct.
If it is going to help you.
Correct.
The thing is, we forget when we are excited, we take the low road, patak, we react, and then we suffer, as we call paschatap, do
Correct.
things, then you repent, that kind of a thing. So the more the higher road quota, the less the low road quota and less the stress, and this is very important for you to even do it yourself. Venkatesh tells me that you should know how to do it yourself kind of a thing with many things, which is true. Now, the sadhus and santas and various saints taught us only this. They said, only go by the high road. Don't worry about low road. Somebody is abusing you, somebody is barking at you. Let the low road be there, but you don't react, etc. etc. This is where the very trick of sadhu sant mechanisms, they come into operation. Right. Next slide, please.
One, I think this is related. So maybe just going back for a second here, I think this is the common, you talked about 10 seconds, right? But in our day-to-day lives, for example, this is the genesis of when someone says, if someone writes you an angry mail, don't respond the same day, respond the next day. So you have a chance to think about it from his point of view, from various points of view. Whereas you respond on that day, it's a threat response that is triggered. And both roads are required, but it makes sense to be thoughtful. To be thoughtful, you need time and you need to trigger your higher. Perfect.
Right. Sleep over it.
Exactly. Which is the longer form of the count to 10, I guess.
Right. Now, this is another diagram. Don't get worried about the complexities of the diagram. It is showing you the tracks along which the nerve impulses pass.
Right.
And you have the high road, which you have already seen. We can move on. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Now we come to how to manage it.
Right.
One simple way to control yourself and your stress is gone. You manage yourself. How to manage stress? You manage yourself. And the lesson is finished. You can go home and go to sleep. but it doesn't happen that easily.
Right.
And many things are more easily said than done.
Right.
Now, Venkatesh has described 3 levels of stress management,
Right.
and which is very inclusive, and which is very all-embracing, if you like.
Right.
And many of us react to stress at a very physical level. Yeah.
Right.
For example, taking the crudest example, you are hurt by something, you are disturbed by something. What do? You find the nearest punching bag and start punching. That
Right.
is your physical way of letting your stress go. And people say, it's good, I like it, I like the stress to go. In Korea, there are managements which encourage people hitting the wall with a pair of shoes so that their stress, will be washed away or something.
Right.
Take a pair of shoes and keep hitting the wall, thinking that he's your boss. And you say, you are the boss and I'm going to hit you, etc., etc. It may sound very silly, but it is not.
Right.
People want an outlet for their stress. And many times the outlets are physical.
Correct.
And these physical outlets are even sometimes so-called spiritual outlets.
Right.
You go to a temple and you chant something 100 times. It is partly physical and partly spiritual. There is a mix of those elements. So the situation gets more complex as you go higher up.
Correct.
But physical levels of stress management, the physical outlets of stress are very, very important.
Correct.
They should not be underestimated. The next is work.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, you say something.
No, absolutely. And one other thought is, of course, one is outlets, but the physical is important. There is a saying, I guess, in the US military. I guess it must be true in ours as well, which is it's all in the mind. But if your body is not all right, your mind will break faster. So if you are not well rested, if you are not eaten well, if you have not had enough exercise to sort of balance things, your ability to manage your mind also reduces. So at some level, you have to invest in your, in your sleep, in your rest, and the responses are maybe better. Is one other aspect of the physical. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, you were talking about the work level.
Yeah.
Just to remind you, we have slides on each, so you can choose when you want to speak on them.
Okay, why don't you take those slides?
Yeah, sorry. So this is the physical, and these are sort of the 3 things, I guess: sleep, exercise, and breathing, which I guess you had talked about. Maybe you want to just give a quick sense on their relation to stress.
Yes, sleep, breathing. No, it's a very tricky thing. The simplest and the most uncomplex biological mechanism is breathing. You and I are breathing at this very moment. We are breathing fast or slow, but you are breathing because breathing vital to life. And if you don't breathe, you die. So that simple a thing which costs you nothing to breathe. You don't pay money to breathe. Yeah. Although you go to spas and there you pay through your nose to learn to how to breathe. That apart, you and me, for lesser mortals like you and me, it is simple breath. Don't even have to say breath control. Most of your breath controls itself, mind you. You don't need to do fancy exercises, things for breath control. But breath gets controlled. And if you are conscious of it, that control is better, etc. Now, what does it do really? This breath control really takes care of the way your thoracic or the chest movements happen, and then the oxygen and other things, get exchanged, etc., etc. A lot of things happen every second, literally or at least every minute when we are just breathing. So the simplest and the least expensive method of physical management is breath control. And that I'm repeating because it's a boon God has given us. They say breathe voluntarily and also breathe involuntarily. God has given you the choice. It may sound rather funny, but you can choose to breathe heavy and deep, or you can choose to breathe shallow. Now, if you're concentrating on something, like you're working on a problem with an electrical circuit or something, and when you're concentrating on that, your breath goes shallow. Hardly move. And then when you let that release, then you say, he was sigh of relief, and you say, I'm better now, etc. So don't underestimate the value of breath control or breathing.
Correct.
Next slide. You have anything to say?
No, nothing. I think, and similarly, I guess, being well rested, you have a separate discussion literally on sleep and rest, but how important that is to being able to manage going from the low road to the high road, right? Because if you're unrested, you will respond more automatically, and it is more difficult to actually take the higher. Yeah, moving to,
Right.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
many of these are things you say a lot about. So maybe you should discuss each of these. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, work management, that is keeping the corporate audience in mind or the business community in mind.
Right.
Yeah. Where everybody is working to make a living or to improve their living.
Right.
Now, you have to do something. You are playing with your, today you are playing with your knowledge. Today you are
Right.
playing with your finer aspects of living. But otherwise, work can be as simple as taking a hammer and striking a hand rod in the factory.
Correct.
So that work kind of a thing can help you or can disturb you.
Right.
Now, when you are displaying your work ethics, your work strength, etc., you are playing to your strength, and the more you play to your strength, the better your work is, and the better your work output is, and better your satisfaction level is. So,
Right.
work management is more complex than merely controlling the movement of some hammer and sickles and so forth.
Correct.
You identify your, yeah. So, you want to say something?
No. Sorry. I think maybe just awareness of time, but I think we have only one more slide. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So play to your strength, build on your strength. We
Right.
will look at SWOT analysis in one of these sessions. And SWOT analysis is an extremely good, simple analysis of what you are and how you are, etc., etc.
Right.
And as Venkatesh has put it, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah.
Right.
And learn to work smart. Yeah. Not work hard, as they say. Do
Right.
less and achieve more. Working hard and working smart. It's a world of difference between the two. That is one way of managing your stress. Next slide, please. So now we ultimately come to what we call as spiritual management. I personally have believed in the importance of spirituality, whatever that means. It
Yeah.
is not rituality, by the way. Spirituality is not rituality.
Correct.
And there are shlokas and volumes and other stuff was written on that. And every sentence, every stanza, every line has its own relevance even in modern times. So we
Right.
need not go too much into spiritual management today.
Right.
But one thing is important. When you are doing something, yogastha kuru karmani, what karma you do it keeping it as yoga in mind. Now, what is yoga and what is a karma? That's a huge chapter which I am very fond of.
Right.
And I keep writing and talking and so forth. So if you are in a state of undisturbed magnanimity, even as equanimity situation, then you can perform your karma much better.
Correct.
And yoga guru karmani, the same thing. Pete Sampras, the great tennis player, was once asked. He is now down to match point, and he is down 0 to 40, 40 love 40,
Right.
and he's serving. And
Right.
somebody asked, how does your mind function at this? You've got millions of dollars at stake, and then you are at love 40. How do you keep your balance? How do you keep your equanimity? And then Pete Sampras said, well, good question, but I don't think about tennis at all. I just think about how to hit that ball right. I
Correct.
only focus on that. Forget about Rod Laver and all others coming and disturbing you. You stay within your ambit of hitting that ball right. And the more you get disturbed, the less effective that hitting the ball will happen. So if you want the ball to be hit properly, you have to be in a state of spiritual balance. Yeah. Yogastha. Excuse me. Yogastha means stha is to stay within yoga. Through
Right.
karmani. Sangam Taktva. Now, Sangam is to attach to the results of this. If in one of these days, I will narrate you another girl, potential girl, athlete in
Right.
Thane,
Right.
who was, and this is a story which I use, but not today. It's a little longish. So she also taught the same thing as Pete Sampras did.
Right.
And she didn't focus, whereas Sampras did. Sampras focused and he got the uh, championship. And this girl didn't focus, and she was not in the yoga state. She was in the disturbed state, and she lost, etc., etc. Now, spirituality, I'm repeating this. I see an attachment of spiritual element in each and everything that we do.
Right.
There is no doing without spirituality at some level in some form.
Right.
And we will see, we will elaborate on this. And much of the spirituality is not simply just going to temples and breaking coconuts.
Correct.
It's your mindset, it is your value system that matters. So you'll see all that later. So I hope we can sort of stop for today.
Yeah,
And
perfect.
this is a
Perfect.
unending saga of Venkatesh's balance is the essence. So no matter how
More
hard you
balance is there. No, but perfect. I
yeah,
guess as we end, I think, and which is why I think one of the really interesting things we have in our Hindu philosophy is truly that if you can abandon attachment, in some ways that is really enabling you to take the high road you mentioned, right? Only if you are not attached can you manage your emotions. Otherwise, your emotions will get the better of you.
right.
Thank you so much, Doc. And look forward to the next one. So we'll do one next week. But thank you so much, Doc.
Yeah, thank you, Venkatesh.